Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Humans on Made of Earth, written by JohnGaldt. Bob walked along behind the angry thin man, ducking below the door frame and having to go one shoulder at a time through the narrow entryway. Humans were big, but Bob made most other humans look small. He didn't like the air in this space. It was too still. It smelled like sweat and bad breath.
I don't know how someone like you could sneak away, but you'll stay here until you're claimed,
said the alien, in English, which was strange. I need to finish unloading cargo, said Bob, glancing over his shoulder at the guards that had found him.
You were unattended.
Simon will be looking for me, said Bob.
Well, Simon can file a missing slave report like everyone else.
There were rows of barred doors, each with a dozen sad people crammed inside. They were all different aliens with different faces, but Bob knew sad when he saw it. I'm not a slave. I'm a good crewmate, said Bob.
Nay, crewmate, of course you are. Now go into the little cage with the rest of your dustling race.
Not a dustling, said Bob. It was the first thing he had said that made the thin-cheeked alien stop and give him a quick up-and-down look. A bony, sharp hand flicked into his robes and pulled out a little pen. He stabbed it into Bob's forearm. Bob then jumped back, bumping into and pushing back the two security guards, but his focus was on the sore skin and peeking at the little red mark it had left.
Dustling,
said the pen.
You are bigger than usual, but you will have to try something smarter than the next time you escape. Now get in the cage.
Bob glanced inside to see other humans. They too were thin, brown hair, blue eyes, looking at him curiously from within. Bob shook his head and took a step back. No, I have to go home. Simon will be looking for me.
Dustlings don't have a home,
said an alien with a laugh. Bob looked inside the small cramped space. Too small. He would suffocate and would... Too small. His heart began to thunder until he calmed himself and remembered what Simon had told him. If you ever feel uncomfortable, you don't need to give a reason. Reasons just give people something to argue with. You only have to say, no, Bob said. The alien waited, his eyes turning cruel as he glared. He glanced behind Bob. They pushed him. Bob brought up his arms and saw the alien draw back his rifle to hit him with the butt end in his ribs again. He had been hit before. He didn't want to make a mess of things that Simon would have to fix. This was probably a mistake that Bob had made, but they hit him again and again, harder each time. They looked at him confused between the strikes. Bob looked into the tiny cage at the humans. They were sad and scared. These people were mean. It didn't matter if the mix-up was Bob's fault. Simon told him that he didn't deserve to get hurt. He pushed the thin alien a little too hard and turned around, grabbing the rifles from the two guards. They wrestled, trying to bring the barrels around to point at Bob, but only slowly caved down towards the ground as he forced the guns away from himself. The moment they let go, Bob did too, and he gave them a good push to let them know what's what. There was a loud crackling noise and Bob's arm started shaking on its own, cramping up against his chest. He turned to find a thin alien with a nasty face holding a noisy metal stick pressed into Bob's shoulder. He looked at Bob with surprise and pushed harder on the rod. Bob's other arm was awake, though, so he grabbed him and pushed him against the bars of one of the cages. The rod clanged loudly on the floor, making Bob wince at the sound.
Don't!
They'll put you in the hole, cried one of the humans behind him. Bob's arm started to wake back up, and he joined the first, forcing the thin body between the narrow bars with cracks and pops until the alien was stuffed inside the cage and tumbling to the floor in a heap. There was a loud bang, far away in the station. It sounded again and again, getting louder each time. Bob picked up the rifles, easing out the batteries as they sparked and fizzled, and their owners ran down the hall away from him. Bob turned to the humans in the cage. Oh, we should go. The human with the long brown hair and blue eyes shook her head.
They'd just hurt you if you tried to escape.
They all flinched in time with bangs, but Bob didn't flinch. He felt himself calm down at the sounds. We need to find Simon. He won't let them hurt you. He's nice. She looked confused, her whole body cringing at the latest bang.
What is that?
She said. That's Simon, said Bob. Simon appeared in the small doorway at the end of the room, relief spreading across his face and exhaling a long, shaky breath. Bob, oh, thank God you're okay. I think we should probably be going. The locals so far as fuck away don't seem to like us very much. Can we bring them? Bob asked. We can't take all the puppies. The ship is only so, much, Oh, said Simon, standing beside Bob and looking into the cage. Bob smiled and crouched his head down to the cage door again. Come on, we'll take you back home. Nestlings don't have a home, she said. Bob looked around the cage. He felt a shudder, like his body was trying to fold in on itself just by looking at it. He took a deep breath. Bob had to be brave. He climbed inside against the voice in his head that screamed to get out. He took out his phone and scrolled through the pictures of himself, pausing on one and zooming out. You are not made of dust. You are made of earth. He offered the phone to her, the other human sliding closer to the light blue glow of the screen. Fingers tucked dirty hair back behind their ears, their eyes reflecting the image and shimmering. It's blue and green and the wind is nice, said Bob. And they're going to be very mad, said Simon while reloading his shotgun. End of story. Story number 2. We were warned not to bond with humans, written by Obvious AD 4159. UTF Everest is requesting clearance to dock, the voice over the comms announced. Tar jolted up in her seat, all 4 eyes locked onto a screen in the front of her. The massive Trade Federation ship slowly approached the orbital station, awaiting the green light to dock. She took her time, carefully reading through the ship's documents, permission strip. It's the ship coming from one of the Terra colonies, holding cargo from Egregious Prime, the co-worker read out loud from the screen in front of him. Natar's heart picked up pace, her body stiffening. All their papers check out. They're cleared to dock, she said, clearing her throat in the process. Her eyes scanned over the list of personnel on the ship, over and over again. The crew are mixed species, but predominantly human, with a human captain and vice captain in charge. A breath hitched in her throat for a moment, her leg bouncing up and down nervously. For, as a Taran, such behavior was uncommon, but it did not raise any alarms with her co-workers, who, unlike her, seemed pretty indifferent about the whole ordeal. As customs agents, they received hundreds of ships daily and tons upon tons of cargo. But for Natar, it was not about the cargo, nor from where the ship had come from, but who was inside of it. Theodore Ivanov, the vice captain of UTF Everest, yawned and stretched in his chair. Oh, he groaned while stretching all 4 of his limbs simultaneously, hands wide, as if grasping for the perfect stretch. Thank Feck that's over. I swear, I thought my spine would fuse with the chair from how long I've sat in it, he said, nudging the captain, as both of them walked out of the main control room, delighted to finally get off the ship. I'll be buried in mine. Seems only fair, considering how much my behind became used to it, the elderly captain replied with a smile. The crew was already busy preparing the cargo bay for unloading. Outside, the Zeturan awaited to greet them, armed customs agents already lining up on both sides of the ship's main hatch, standing at attention. Man, look at them. If I didn't know any better, I'd think the President of the Galactic Council snuck on board with us, and they are waiting for him, the Vice Captain chuckled, as the hatch slowly opened with a hiss. You know how over the top the Zeturan like to be at times, especially when it comes to formality and welcoming guests, the captain replied, adjusting his uniform a bit, both men assuming their professional postures and stepping out. Oh God, Natar panicked to herself. As the Zetarans lined up on both sides of the ship's exit hatch, she could feel her palms sweating. One would think the Zetaran, especially a customs agent inside of the orbital station of her own planet, would have no issues confronting humans. But here she was, eyes nervously darting around, looking at the hatch, then at the floor, then at the hatch again. She inhaled, adjusting her stance and lifting her chin up, looking dead ahead with the ice-cold stare of a professional. You're right there, Nat, an agent on her left asked, trying to hide his curling lip. I think you got the posture down to a T, he nailed sharply, drowning out the oncoming giggles with a tide of space station air. Eyes front, Zack, Natar quietly hissed, her next words interrupted by the hissing sound of the hatch unlocking and opening, causing her ears to shoot up. you'd think her neck would snap with how fast she turned her head back towards the trade ship.
Was he there? Was he there? What if he wasn't?
Maybe he got held up on the colonies. Her mind raced. The Zataran legs felt like jelly as she pressed her rifle tighter against her chest, as if the cold metal would somehow calm her heart.
The crew's list said that he was on board,
she inhaled, again closing her eyes for a moment, trying to steady herself. Such an odd feeling, considering Zeterans didn't have much issues with emotions. The clang of the hatch, finally hitting the floor, snapped her back to reality. Her ears perked up once more, all four of her eyes suddenly locked in on the two figures exiting the ship and exchanging greetings with the station's head of command. Natar wanted to run, away from the humans exiting the ship, or towards them. It didn't matter. She just needed to move. The vice captain's eyes seemed to scan over the crowd of Zeterans standing at attention until they finally landed on Natar. His expression softened, a look of infatuation briefly replacing the stoic facade of the vice captain before returning. Natar felt like melting right there, the pupils on her four eyes dilating and her heart thumping in her chest. A nudge from Zek grounded her in the last moment before she floated away to Fantasyland. But now, nothing else mattered. Theodore promised her that he would be there, and he did not disappoint. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 peeps: Bitmori, Terran on Air, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Red Panda 121, Leslie 517, Bushmaster 177, Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Lightsjock, Dragzoon WRE, Lord Azrakal, and Arcadian. Thank you.